All right, I'm here with my good friend Pete and fellow insurance man. So, in the world of entrepreneurship, insurance, real estate, whatever you're in, we happen to focus on insurance. That was our calling. There's always challenges, there's always struggles, there's always things to learn, and it looks way easier when you see somebody already successful. But rarely do you hear about all the struggles, the challenges. I've shared it lots of times, and how I started going into hotels and printing off their printer because I didn't have any money and I didn't have I barely had a laptop at that time. And I'd walk in there dressed nicely, act like I was staying there, and then use their printer and print up a whole bunch of flyers. And I'd post them at Starbucks. I would door knock, all the struggles and the challenges. But fortunately, both Pete and I have built multi-million-dollar agencies, and Pete has a way bigger, massive agency. So he is someone who is looked up to in our industry, and we're very fortunate. He's given us some time today so we can learn more about how he actually did this, his goals, and what he's going through, some of the challenges. So this way, it'll give you inspiration and hope because we've been through it already, and we still go through challenges. And in the very beginning, it's brutal. But like we tell a lot of agents, you don't have to be that smart to do this business. Like I'm just determined. That's my thing. I just don't give up. But if you just hang in there and stick with it and you do it for a number of years, you'll get better and better. Just don't quit. I mean, that sounds like a cheesy cliche, just never give up type of thing, a little cat hanging on the piece of string. But it's true. I mean, I wanted to quit this business multiple times. I got sick of it. But for some reason, I kept getting called back into it. And I'm so glad that I actually stuck it out because now we have, financial freedom for our family. We're able to go do trips everywhere and do whatever we would like to do. And it's a lot of fun. We get to help people. And in our side of the practice, we don't even charge people to work with them. We get paid by the insurance company. So it's a complete non-biased win-win. So Pete, maybe you can share a little bit about how'd you even get into this practice? I mean, it's not like you woke up one day saying, I'm going to be an insurance agent as a kid.
No. I wanted to be an attorney, which I don't know which is worse when I was younger, but so I was a senior in college, and my roommate at the time was working at a captive as like a glorified intern, you know. So that was like my first like real look at the insurance world. And I don't know. At the time, I think he was making like 20 or 30 grand a year, which in college was like $1 million. So I was like, oh, let me do that. So I got licensed in 2010, and I had to write down 200, 300 people that you knew, and then they were like, all right, go sling them some insurance. And I was like, the hell. So that was the first stint, and I went from a captive to eventually independent in 2012. I was really good at selling the dream back in the day because just like anything else, it's multi-level marketing, whether you're insurance, real estate, everything's a pyramid, or glorified pyramid, right? So I was really good at selling the dream, but not so good at living it. So I recruited a bunch of bad apples, and between like roll-up debt, the mortgage that I had, the 1 Series BMW convertible that I couldn't afford at the time, I was probably like 90, 95 grand in the hole at the end of 2012. So that's to your point, Roy, the not so fun things that nobody talks about because they see the watches or the glitz or the glamour or the trips or whatever. But it was a hard lesson to learn at a ripe old age of 23, 24 years old,
Yeah, I mean, most people, they may have college debt at that time, but you branched out, created this business, and that's very similar to what I did too. I racked up a bunch of debt also, but I mean, $95,000, that's a lot of money, even in today's value. And it's like you were selling this dream and living it. You could see it happening, but then it wasn't coming to fruition in the dollar side of things. And that's a huge discouragement. Like most people would be like, all right, forget this. It doesn't work out. I'm not going to do it. And I'm just going to go ahead and quit. But what kept you hanging in there and still wanting to sell insurance after being in debt like that?
To your point, I saw a lot of dum-dums in our industry making millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So I was like, what is wrong with me that I can't get there? So, I mean, I scratched and clawed my way out of it after like 18 to 20 months, but I was flipping shoes and Pokemon cards. I worked as a W-2 for a small captive P&C agency for a little while, making like dog shit salary plus commission, like anything that I could do because any life policy that I wrote, like you experienced in the past too, went to debt. So it
Yeah.
wasn't like real, I was eating ramen noodles on a daily basis. And, me and my wife or girlfriend at the time, our dates were like Netflix and chill, and that
Yeah.
was pretty much it.
And you're
Uh,
using somebody else's login, right?
yeah, I 100% use someone else's login. I moved back in with my parents. I lived in the basement, like,
Uh,
the true rags to riches story. And I know mine was a lot less worse than other people's too, but it definitely sucked. But to get back to your question, it was mainly because I could see, to your point, other people out there absolutely crushing it and being like, this dude's not better than me. This girl's not better than me. Like, I don't understand why they're making millions and I'm not. So you just had to stay the course. And in the time that I was in that debt, or I felt like a real piece of shit, it felt like forever. But looking back now, after being in the industry, I think we started pretty much at the same time, like 13 and a half years,
yeah.
right? That 18 to 20 months was kind of a blip on the overall radar of our entire career. So when you're in it, it feels like eternity, but when you're looking back, it's really not that long. It was like 10% of my entire, insurance career.
Exactly. And that's the other thing to think about that too. When you go through a bad situation or a bad time or business is tough, it's not going to be forever unless you allow it to be. I remember like getting really, really excited selling a big life insurance policy, and I was in debt. I maxed out cards to buy mortgage protection leads. Nothing was coming to fruition. I tried to buy all this marketing program, and people would cancel their policies on me in the very
Mhm.
beginning. I remember selling this nice, big, juicy life insurance policy. I was so stoked. And, people are like, why are you doing this? So like, you're not making any money. It's not for you. And I was like, no, I think I can do this. I sold this big policy. It's like a $5,000 commission. And back then that was life changing. I'm like, oh my God, if I just do $5,000 a month, I could retire, because it's back in college time frame. Right. And
Yep.
that person ended up canceling the policy. They said, you know what? We decided it wasn't for us. Completely crushed me because I needed those commissions to pay back chargeback debt and a credit card. I had no other options. Like, this is absolutely insane. And it felt like this was my whole entire life, right? Like it was a bad trip I was going through and I wasn't going to get out of this thing. But, what I did is I internalized that. I'm like, I see these other people up on stage or doing it. And I'm like, they're cool, but I am cooler than them. I am better than, I know that. How in the hell are they making that much money? And I know I could do way better than that. So that was the main driver for me. I mean, I know it's not a good thing necessarily to compare yourself to others, but I did that 100% of the time. I was just like, that person's doing it. They're successful. There's no reason why I can't be. And I'm a slow learner, late bloomer. It took me a long time. And so
Yep.
when that event happened to me, I went back through all the old leads, like the B lead, C lead. I mean, these were like F- leads. And I finally was able to sell like 3 tiny little final expense policies that equated to that 5,000 to get me out. Then I immediately reinvested it back into the business. And I think that's a problem that a lot of agents have, or just independent entrepreneurs. They don't invest back into the business because they go, well, how are you growing so fast? Well, every dollar that I make, I could basically qualify for food stamps because I put all my money back into the business, right? And to help grow it and scale it. And a lot of agents, they're just cheap. I mean, they're too cheap. You have a training program, I have a training program, and sometimes we get pushback on $97 a month. I'm like, if you have a problem with that, there's other bigger challenges in your life, right? And like that 97 can turn into a lifetime education for you to make millions of dollars. But if you're not willing to do that, I don't know if I can help you. And what my background in network marketing, I started in multi-level as well, then created
Mhm.
my own agency. I've always wanted it more than other people because I want them to succeed and be good. And then it drags you down too. So you have these financial sucks and these time sucks as a part of doing it. And it's a really challenging balance. But I think one of the saving graces that both you and I have is the ability to have confidence in ourselves and to whip out that card. Because if I get too comfortable, if there's like way too much liquidity and everything's paid off, I'm like, I'm going to get comfortable. I'll just go out and make a huge purchase. And like, okay, now I have to pay this off.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, with the agents that you're helping now, is that a common challenge? Is like, maybe you can share a little bit about how you reinvest back into your practice and how you try to get other agents to understand the value of actually reinvesting back into themselves.
Yeah, so I think a light bulb went off probably about a year ago constructing our LOA program. So LOA gets like a bad rap in our industry because
Yeah.
most people take advantage of it. But getting the agents to conceptualize whether or not they're profitable, but on my dime. So yes, you're going to get a reduced compensation structure because I'm paying for the leads and the marketing and everything like that. But constructing training wheels for them to see, hey, if I go to the broker side in 12 to 18 months or 24 months or whatever it is,
Mhm.
will I be in the black every single week if I had elevated comp and I was paying for the leads? Because to your point, Roy, most people fail out of this business because they aren't spending any money. They think that if they make $1,000 on a sale, that it took them 80 hours to accomplish because they finally closed their uncle. That's more ROI positive than them swiping their Chase credit card for 2,500 bucks and then go writing 10 or 15,000 right on their own pen. And it's a weird mentality that everybody's in. And I'm sure you felt it because I felt it back in the day. It was like, what do you mean I got to spend to make? I'm paying to work. Like, I get it. But at the end of the day, you're starting a business. And for us in the insurance space, this is the cheapest business that you could possibly start. You're not getting a brick and mortar. You're not slinging ice cream or tacos or the Honda Civics. You need to invest a couple $1,000 maybe your first month for licensing, marketing, maybe a nice dress shirt, and that's really it. And you're off to the races. But most people are failing because they're not spending. And I post all over social, and I know you have been too. Like, if you're not dropping at least bare minimum, like $1,500 to $2,500 a month on some sort of lead resource, whether it's your own ads, and I could go off on a tangent about being your own marketer because I think it's a royal waste of time. But whether it's your own ads, you're buying leads, you're doing seminars, whatever, if you don't have that 20 to 30 grand set aside in your mind to spend on an annual basis, you're not going to make it. And this job is too stressful to think that way. You might as well just go be a manager at Target and make 55, 65 grand a year and not have stress. You know what I mean? Because me and you are stressed out all the time,
I live in this. I live on the brink of an anxiety attack every day, man.
Yeah, a minor one,
Right. Yeah. 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 That, putting the money back into the practice is huge. And that's the problem that a lot of these agents have. They're just too scared to do that. They think they could just go to their own center of influence. Like all the time, agents will say, okay, I'm going to get my license. And I talk about like, you want to open up a McDonald's? Like you have to have like $1 million in reserve. It's a huge franchise fee. Here, all you got to do is pass a license. In most states, everybody gets a trophy, like 60, 70%. And the questions aren't even that hard. And yeah, you spend a couple grand to get set up. It's tax deductible. And then you have your own individual practice. And a lot of people don't treat it that way. It's like, this is your own business. And like, would you hire yourself? Probably not. You got to get better. And, if you just keep putting that money back into it, it does scale and grow. But there is that hoping time frame, like, oh man, I hope this does work out. But that's where the confidence in yourself comes into. And ultimately, I tell these agents all the time, like, what's the worst thing that can happen? You get some credit card debt, maybe a ding on your credit score. Sure. Okay. Well, you can survive it. You can recoup it. Our entire country is built on debt and bankruptcy anyway. So you can survive it, and then use your wife's credit to buy a house if you have to.
Right.
It's like, this business is not for everyone. Neither is entrepreneurship, but you have to make a choice. Like, do you want to just be an employee W-2? That's fine. And a lot of people are comfortable with that. But if you're in the space of being an agent, you are a business owner. And what do you want to do with your business? Do you want to get to the point where you're 75 or 80 years old and go, oh shit, I wish I would have done that. Now you've given up all the time, right? I mean, It's never too late to start, but you have to ask yourself, like, if I don't do this, then what will happen in the future? And if you see other people doing it that have become successful, that started from nothing, like I slept in my truck and passed out flyers and door knocked about 7702 IRC tax code, tax-free retirement. And you got to start somewhere and actually do that. And I think a lot of agents, especially today with, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff, it's instant gratification. They expect it to take, I'm going to be successful right away. Dude, it took me 5 years before I made 6 figures in this business. And There's a lot of other success stories out there. People hit it in 3 months, a year. God bless you. That wasn't me. But don't have that anticipation coming in here. You know, I always tell agents, if you're investing back in your practice and you're buying leads, you could make, say, 50 grand your first full-time year if you're 100% focused on it, and then it'll scale from there. But don't expect to walk in here and make a few $100,000 unless you have a rich uncle that lets you sell them an annuity or something. That would be great. But other than that, you know, you have to give it a lot of time. And that's the other short-sightedness of this, is the patience factor. People don't have the patience, and agents complain, and then they blame you. They blame me. They blame the leads. You know, I love that. Oh, these leads suck. I always send them that Glenn Ross. The leads aren't weak. You're weak, you know?
100%.
Yeah. That way they get a perspective of it too, you know, and it's definitely not for everyone, but it's one of those things where if you give it a shot, it's almost impossible to fail. You can make it. And the level of success that you want to achieve, it's up to you. I have agents, and I know you do too, that are comfortable making just 100,000 a year. They got their family life, they got their time. That's totally cool. Do what you want to do. I know we're wired differently. We want to be number one in everything and grow it and scale it. That comes with an extra layer of stress, responsibility, and taking chances. But for us, it's worth it. For others, it's not. So you can really choose your level of success in this practice, which is hard to do in other types of businesses, especially like the brick and mortar side of things.
Oh yeah, 100%. And to your point too, I mean, yeah, entrepreneurship isn't for everybody, but you have to do your own assessment, whether you're slinging insurance or real estate, or you are opening an ice cream shop or whatever. Like what's your capacity of money versus time? Because we have agents on the broker side that maybe aren't full-time. Maybe you're a stay-at-home mom, or you're a part-time realtor, part-time insurance agent, and your prerogative is to spend 15 hours a week working, making 45 grand a year. I can't conceptualize that. That doesn't make sense to me, because there's no such thing as too much money. But if that's your prerogative, then go after that goal. If your prerogative is like us, to be maniacs and scale an agency to a couple $100 million, then go after that. But I think you have to set the precedent, one, of what you actually want to accomplish when you come in, either into our business or any business for yourself, and really declare, one, what you want out of it, and two, what your capacity is for what you're going to invest, time and money, right, at the same time. Because you could say, I want the million, because that's, you know, on TikTok, $1 million apparently is like, you know, $50 now. Everybody should be making $1 million a year.
Right.
How much are you willing to invest or give up in order to get said million? Or how much are you willing not to do to make 45 grand a year, you know, and anywhere in between?
Yeah, you can pick your level of success, right? I mean, there's a lot of people too that are overambitious, in my opinion, where the agents that say, I'm going to come on full time. I'm going to quit my job, put my back against the wall. That can work, sure, but you also have to balance it out too. If you're married and you have kids, you got a mortgage, and you're used to that reliable paycheck, that's probably not the best idea until your commissions are equal to, or at least greater than, what you're currently earning for a consistent period of time. Then you can make that leap. But that's the beautiful part about our practice, is that, just like you mentioned, you can just sell a few policies here and there, start building it up. Yeah, I'm going to give up weekends and nights. Sure, you're going to give up time and family time, and you're going to have to sacrifice in order to have that. But if you want that freedom of owning your own practice, that's what you're going to have to do. And if you don't want that, that's fine too. You can work for a company and just get a paycheck every week and go home and do what you want to do. That's why there's people who are engineers. They absolutely love it. They just clock in, clock out. I have good friends. They're moderately successful, and that's all they want. They would never want to do anything extra. Like, nope, 9 to 5, I go home, I disconnect. I got the weekends. I get a 401k, healthcare, and I get 2 weeks off. I am happy. Wonderful. Do whatever you are happy with, you know, but and you know, even with this business, you can just do part-time and still be incredibly happy if you choose to. But most of the people in here, they're very ambitious, and there's no ceiling. Right? Because that's what I was limited in before, working for people. And I'm an absolute terrible employee. I'm like, I'm going to go to the lake this weekend. No, you're working. No, I'm not. I'm going to the lake, so you can fire me if you want to. You know, I do whatever I want in that sense. And but to have that freedom comes a sacrifice too, right? I had to give up nights, weekends. I mean, there was a time frame for about 8 years. And the first 8 years in this, I worked 7 days a week. It drove my wife nuts. And then I promised her when we had kids that I wouldn't work on Sundays. And then we got a house and moved to Texas. I was like, okay, I won't work Saturdays or Sundays, but maybe a little bit here and there. And
Yeah.
then it came down to like, I'll be home by 5. Well, now it's 6. And well, sometimes I got to be home a little bit later. I got to go on this trip. And, there's always sacrifices, but those sacrifices allow us to have the life and the vision that we've created together and that we want to have, because you can't have the best of both worlds. You can't sit on the couch and watch Netflix and then make millions of dollars and be able to help a lot of people. There's always a give and a take. All the successful people, they're incredibly busy and they have to give up family time and they miss out on certain things. And that's sometimes part of it. Like I couldn't go to one of my daughter's not trampoline class, a gymnastics class.
Mhm.
I was like, hey, I'm not able to go. I have a really important meeting. She goes, well, why can't you just cancel the meeting? I go, I can't cancel the meeting because I already committed to it. And I will commit to come to your next one. And then that way I will block that. But I already gave my commitment. I need to do that because the reason why you can go to these classes and go to private school and we get to travel everywhere is because I have these prior commitments and I have to sacrifice some things, but then we get a lot more out of it. Would you rather me come to the gymnastics class, but not go to Florida and stay at a resort for 2 weeks? Oh no, we want to go to Florida. Okay, great. Well, then there's a trade-off here, right? So I'm trying to teach my kids now that trade-off aspect and try to get them to learn about how money and everything else works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really fun because you get to help a lot of agents out. You get to see them grow. And if you're an agent watching this and you want more success, you can reach out to Pete directly or myself. We all work together as a team. We have contracts with each other. It's all one big team. But you just have to realize if you're in this practice and you want to make it big, what are you willing to give up? Just like what Pete said, you have to give up something. There's always a give and a take, reciprocal reaction that you're going to have to do. And if you're not willing to do it, that's okay. One of the hardest things in business and life in general is knowing yourself. Are you that type of person that wants that? And if you are, then don't limit yourself. You can absolutely do that. And if you don't want to, that's okay too. Just understand that you're not going to achieve those massive levels of success. But if you're happy with not achieving that, that's totally fine. Like a lot of my family, they don't care about that. They're not trying to have their own private jet and have, go to Europe for 2 or 3 weeks and make millions of dollars. It's just not their thing. It's my thing, but that's because I'm wired differently in order to have that, to go to, to take that step and make those sacrifices. So what are some of your goals with your agency, for example? Like what's your next 5 years look like?
So first and foremost, it's not about volume for me anymore. Like it used to be cool saying like, oh, I got 1,000 people or 700 people or 15,000 people or whatever. But on one of my vision boards I want 1,000 active writers making over 100,000 a year. That's like first and foremost. So,
Yeah.
because if that happens, I'm making a ton of money. So it's all good. But you want the people to have success. And then I don't know. I want the ability. I don't know if I'll ever sell the damn thing, but like your goals and visions too, and we kind of align on the same structure. I want the ability. I'm 35 now. I turned 35 this month. I want the ability at 45 years old to take a step back. And I don't know if I'll ever stop or sell or quit or whatever you want to call it, but
Sure.
have the ability to say, hey, I've accomplished a lot in my 23, 24 years of being in this business. And maybe I do want to take 6 months off and travel the world with my family, or I want to just be on a beach and write a book or whatever the case may be. I want to have the freedom that we talk about on a daily basis because we have it now. Like me and you travel all over the freaking country. We speak at events. We go to parties. We stay out late. Whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's minute freedom. But the true definition of freedom is basically being able to do whatever you want, whenever you want, with whoever you want. And that's the long-term goal that I see. I would say over the next 7 to 10 years is where I want to be.
Time freedom, right? Because like when I made the first million, I was like, whoa, I hit that number, but it doesn't feel like it. Like before, like thinking of $1 million, I was like, oh, I could do whatever I want. But again, reinvesting back into the practice and everything, it's a whole different world, right? Like netting $1 million is a whole different story than, grossing $1 million, for instance. Like if you gross 5 and then you net 500, it's still 500,000, which sounds like a lot, but then your lifestyle also increases. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 36, and that's one of my goals too, is by 40, I will have the opportunity to do what I want to do on my time way more than I have now. I'm like, I can't ever foresee myself quitting this practice or retiring. I mean, we may sell the block of business, sell the book, but then do like an acqui-hire or something. But
Yep.
I got way too much. We got to have a third of our lives in this practice, right? What else am I going to do? You know, I don't know. I'll buy some real estate, sure, but this is what I want to do, right? And, you know, I want to be able to have that time freedom because in my opinion, there's two ways. You can have financial freedom, buy whatever you want, not worry about going to dinner, just don't even look at the bill, just say, here you go. That's amazing feeling. Coming
Yep.
when I was in college trying to buy a can of Copenhagen and a Steel Reserve beer to get a buzz, and my cards declined. You know, it's like, you know, so it's a whole different world. But now I don't have the time freedom as of yet. And that's what's really hard. But that's where investing in your practice that a lot of agents miss out on. You can buy time. You can pay someone to do your video editing. You can pay someone to help you with the processing. And that's the leverage that you have to start creating at a certain point. Does it cost you money? Would you make more without it? Yeah, but then you don't have any time. So it's like, okay, my time's worth having somebody that is good at what they do, because I recognize my weaknesses, which is organization for sure. I love talking. That's about all I'm good at. But all the other and you know, applications, the details, I got somebody, they're amazing at that. They're going to go ahead and do it for you. Cost me a lot of money to have all that, but then I get to focus on what I like to do more. And then I don't have to worry about giving up weekends and nights to try to do all this stuff. I just pay someone else to do it, delegating my time. And I think that's another next big step that it sucks. I remember when I first hired somebody, it was like super scary, because I had to spend all that money, and I'm like, now I have to train them and how to figure this all out. Is it really going to be worth it? I'll just do it myself. I'm a terrible delegator. At least I was in the beginning. I'm like, I'll just do it. I'll call them. Let me just do it. But then I was like, there's no way. Look at Tim Cook, right? As CEO of Apple, or any big CEO or a hyper successful person, they still have 24 hours in the day. They're just making way more money, and they're probably doing a lot less stuff that they don't want to do because they're just delegating it all out. And that's the next big step in our personal practice too, within the next 4 to 5 years, is to be able to do what we want to do in the sense of time freedom by delegating it all out. We'll make less, but that's okay, because that less per transaction is now scalable. So we'll make a lot more in the big picture.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. I think Bezos was on an interview not too long ago, and he was like, I make all my important decisions between like 9 and 11, and then I don't do shit the rest of the day. Like,
That's his
wow,
whole day.
what a day.
Yeah, I know, exactly. And then it's this, can you imagine having that conversation with Bezos? Like, hey, look, you want to invest in this thing called Amazon? Everybody thought he was crazy, you know? And it's like, our business is not that revolutionary, right? And you see other people doing it, like Steve Jobs always said, you know, the whole world was built by ordinary people just like you, right? Are you going to make that difference or not? At least here, we're not trying to create some IP or some technological advancement. I mean, we're handcuffed by whatever the insurance companies allow us to work with, but we have the ability to grow and scale at a very low cost versus any other practice out there. Really, you just got to find people that are willing to actually work and do it. And even if you're a new agent and your goal is not to sell insurance, but you're a good manager position, then you could just be a recruiter. I mean, there's tons of recruiters, and you can make millions of dollars recruiting. So there's also different positions within the practice that you can pivot to, or different lines of coverage. All the time, agents will sell Medicare. They say, I'm done with Medicare. I want to sell annuities or life insurance. Okay. Or I'm done with life insurance. I want to sell Medicare or annuities. That's what's so cool about this business, is it really diversifies you. And then even if you decide that you want to be an employee, if you have any type of basic experience, a lot of these insurance companies will hire you for regional reps or sales support. So it's a very diverse industry versus others that are not diverse. If I own a Dunkin' Donuts franchise, you know, I'm stuck in that thing, all these bills and overhead, versus insurance. I can pivot, go get a job somewhere, and it's a great foundation.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And it's so interesting. You mentioned like fast food joints and brick and mortars and stuff like that. This is like one of the only businesses that I've seen that like you can be in the black day one. Like what was Amazon's run rate? Like they've been in debt for like 20, 30 years or
Oh,
not
it's still, yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
They're still not profitable. Like that, you can't even like conceptualize that. Or like a Walmart or a retail chain where you have to spend millions of dollars on inventory and hope somebody wants a bicycle that day or whatever the case may be. This one, you come in, spend a couple $100 to get licensed, fingerprint, and all that stuff, and maybe invest $1,500 to $2,500 in some leads, and you can be in the black your first week, which is wild. And sometimes, because I know you look at your P&Ls as much as I do, sometimes you go month to month and like you have a red month because we invested too much in the business. And then I'm like, oh my God, what do you mean I'm in the red? But like conceptually in
Yeah.
the atmosphere of business, like 1 month out of 24, you're in the red. Like that's so wild that
Oh
you
yeah.
can achieve that here, you know, versus any other type of business that you want to start.
Well, plus you're in control, right? Because like, let's say you are in the red and you need to like get out of it. All you got to do is pick up this magical thing. It's called a phone, and you can pull yourself out of any indebted situation by just banging on the phone, making calls. Or agents say, "I don't have anybody to call." I'm like, okay, why don't you go to like the Chamber of Commerce meeting? Why don't you go to Eventbrite and go to all these events and just network and talk? They're all free.
Mhm.
Why don't you just do that? Why don't you go knock on somebody who sells P&C insurance, say, hey, I'll write all the life insurance for you, and we'll split commissions to begin with.
Right.
That's what I did. We just split commissions with a lot of agencies so I could get somebody to freaking call. Or I even called the white pages back in the day when you had the big book. I just call down there and just say, hey, look, leave a voicemail on the recording machine talking about insurance. And I got a couple sales out of it. Or
Yeah.
just simply the other way too, you could be creative with it. I used to sit at the same Starbucks, same time, and I'd ask somebody, this is a tax filing for one of my LLCs, but I would ask somebody, I'd be like, hey, look, can you give me your opinion on this marketing piece, right? I'm doing something for my company and I just kind of want a second set of eyes on it. And it would be all about insurance and all the benefits. I go, what do you think of that marketing piece? Oh, that's pretty interesting. Like, okay, so if you were hypothetically, if I was sitting down in front of you to like, sell you a policy, which I'm just getting your opinion on this,
Yeah.
what would you think of that? Would you be willing to get like a review of it, of your current coverages? Would that be something of interest to you? And then I get them talking, and then, long story short, I'd be like, well, while we're already here, I have my laptop. Let me show you my process. You give me your opinion on the process because I really want to grow this. Even when I was brand new, I would say I was interning, right? And I'm
Hmm.
learning this process, right? And then I would be able to show it. And then I would save myself by saying, insurance is pretty straightforward. I would just like sling in term. And I'd be like, you're paying this. Here's the term quote. I know how to do the applications, and you're buying it from the insurance company. I'm just the middle person. You want to see if you can even get this health rating? It doesn't cost anything to apply. Sure, why not? I was selling tons of term like that, but I was
Yeah.
out of my comfort zone, sitting there at Starbucks asking people at 22 years old, hey, look, can you give me your opinion? But most agents won't do that. Most people aren't willing to make that effort. But
Mm-mm.
yeah, that was a long tangent to pull yourself out of the hole, but you could easily do that in this practice versus others where you're sitting there like, please buy this bicycle. Let me call everybody to buy a bicycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome, Pete. Well, hey, man, thank you so much for your time today. And
Absolutely.
I'll get this out. This is always fun. It's always really cool to learn because people see you online and your social media and your speaking, your academy, all this success, but maybe not all of them know about the struggles that you have gone through and that we still go through, right? And the
Yeah.
risks that
Every
you take
day.
and how you reinvest back into the business. It's like, yeah, we've had monster months where we make $400,000 or $500,000 in a month. That's awesome. Is that money in the bank account next month? No way. It's all
Never.
going back into the business, So that's one of the big takeaways there. So thank you so much, Pete. We really appreciate
Love
it.
it. Thanks for having me, man.
All right, cool, buddy. And then I don't know how to end this. I'm just gonna end it.
Yeah.
I'll give you a quick call.
All right. Sounds good, bro.